Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Ashley, and today I'm going to show you how to make a quick and easy pizza dough recipe that you can freeze for use later on, or you can use right away, whichever one you prefer. So that being said, let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to need is a cup and a half of warm water. You don't want your water to be more than 110 degrees, otherwise it will kill your yeast. And that's really important. It can be tap water. Tap water is fine. There's nothing wrong with tap water in baking. So you want to start with 1.5 cups of lukewarm water. You should be able to stick your finger in it without it being too hot or burning you. And then you can use a kitchen scale. I like to use a kitchen scale just to make sure that my measurements are accurate, especially when we're measuring in ounces or grams or something like that. You're going to need a 1/2 ounce of, you can use either quick rise yeast or just regular active yeast. Either one is totally fine. If you want it a little faster, the quick rise is the way to go, so that you can make sure that you have quicker rise time on your bake. So you'll do a 1/2 ounce of that. Okay, got a 1/2 ounce of yeast. You're also, on top of that, you're gonna sprinkle about 2 teaspoons of sugar. The sugar feeds the yeast so that it has something to burp up to help your dough rise. So you're gonna do about 2 teaspoons of that. And you're gonna stir these together. I have a Danish bread whisk, but you can use just a wooden spoon or a regular whisk is fine. So you're just gonna mix that up in your bowl and give it a minute to get all incorporated. You want the yeast to start dissolving, and you'll kind of get like this frothy looking liquid in here. So you want it to get to that point. Once it reaches this kind of milky looking frothy consistency, you want to set it aside for about 5 minutes so that it can start activating the yeast. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, after about 5 minutes, you'll see it looks very bubbly and frothy. That means the yeast is active and it's ready to go. So to this mixture, you're going to add 1 teaspoon of some coarse salt. I usually use kosher salt. You can use sea salt, whatever salt, except for iodized salt. Iodized salt is not recommended when you're using yeast because it can kill off the yeast and doesn't really work that well. So you'll just kind of incorporate that. And then we will add in 4 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour is what I use. That's just my preference for my family. I just prefer not to use bleached flour, even in my bread flour or any other types of flour. Just a preference, but you use whatever you'd like. I find unbleached flour to work the best. So you're gonna do 4 cups. So when you're scooping your flour, just make sure that you sprinkle it in. Don't compact your cup down because then you're gonna get inaccurate measurements. So you can scoop and level, but you want to kind of sprinkle it into your measuring cup. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so there's our 4 cups of flour. Next, you're going to use your whisk or your wooden spoon or whatever you prefer, and you're going to incorporate all of this together. Just as another preference, I really like the Danish bread whisks. They work really well. They're easier to get the dough off of whenever you're done using it. And I think they help incorporate the ingredients a little bit better, in my opinion. So you'll mix this until you have kind of a little sticky dough. Sometimes it gets to a point where it looks a little dry. And that's where I kind of abandon the whisk situation, because it gets to a point where it's hard to mix with any whisk or spoon or anything. It gets kind of this shaggy dough consistency, like this. And so that's when we go in with our washed hands. They're clean. And you just kind of want to incorporate all of that dry flour into your mixture. Once you get that flour incorporated really good, the dough will still be kind of sticky. We're gonna get all of this in here. It's gonna take a little bit of muscle. So if you skip arm day at the gym, this is how you get that workout in. So you'll make this nice little sticky, shaggy dough. So it won't look perfect, and that's okay. But what we want is for all of the dry flour to be in this ball, so that when we move on to the next step, the rising stage, it's got all of the flour that's in the bowl incorporated. Now, some people will pull out a second bowl for this part. I don't, because I don't want to do that many dishes. So what I usually do is I pull the dough ball out, and I will put a little bit of olive oil in the bowl. This helps to prevent it from sticking, and helps the dough along. Put a little bit on top. You don't need a lot, just enough to kind of line the bowl with, so that we don't stick whenever we're in this rising stage. So this is going to sit and rise for about an hour. I used quick rise yeast, so it'll probably be closer to like 30 minutes or so. But you just kind of want to leave it alone, let it do its thing. And while that's doing that, I'm going to clean up and we'll be right back. I forgot to add, you want to cover this with something, either a wet or damp towel, or I actually like to use these kind of, let me see if this is a big enough one. These kinds of things, they're kind of like shower caps, but they're really good for proofing your bread. So hot tip, buy a bajillion pack of shower caps on Amazon for like $5, and you can use them a couple of times and then throw them away. But don't forget to cover it and then put it in a place that's warm for you, so that you can get the best rise out of it. I usually stick it in the microwave, so that the oven doesn't accidentally get turned on or something like that. And the microwave is usually fairly warm. So we'll go ahead and stick it in there, and I'll see you in 30 minutes. Okay, welcome back. This is now proofed to where I would like it to be. As you can see, he doubled, a little more than doubled in about 30 minutes or so. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take him out. We're gonna lightly flour our surface, and we're going to knead him for just a minute and then split him up. And I'm gonna freeze him because I'm not quite ready to use him tonight. And then I'll show you how I do that and how I kind of store them in the freezer so that they stay good and don't get freezer burn and all of that. So you want to lightly flour your surface, and you're just going to dump him out just like that. And then we're just going to knead him for a few times. We don't want to overwork it too much, but you definitely want him looking nice and smooth. Since this is a quick recipe, you don't need it to be perfect. No pun intended there. This is a technique that we use a lot in bread to kind of make these like uniform balls. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this into 4s because this is going to make 4 little individual pizzas. My kids like to each have their own. One likes olives, one doesn't. So I have to give them their own separate pizzas. So what I do is I kind of just shape them up as smoothly as possible. And then I will wrap each of them in some saran wrap before I put them in a labeled freezer bag to go into the deep freeze. Now, like I said before, if you want to go ahead and bake these now, you can. You just would roll them out like you would any normal pizza crust recipe, and put your toppings, your sauce, all that, and bake them like you normally would at between 450 and 500 degrees. So we're just gonna wrap these up nice and neat in some saran wrap and kind of flatten them out a little bit. And these are good for a couple of months in the freezer. They won't last that long in this house, but they're good for up to a couple of months. I would say 2 to 3 months before you need to use them, especially if you're storing in a freezer bag that's not, or a bag that's not freezer safe. But I would definitely recommend using freezer safe gallon Ziploc bags. Get this last one wrapped up and stored, maybe. There we go. Let's try this again. Saran wrap's never my friend. Get this last one on here. And we'll kind of flatten them down into their respective little discs. And then we will put them in a freezer safe gallon Ziploc bag. And you can freeze them for up to, 3 to 6 months, I would say, in these freezer bags. But that's it. That's how we make our quick, easy weeknight pizza dough. So please subscribe to my channel, and feel free to leave any comments with any questions or suggestions. Thanks.